Welcome to the Memories of a Moonbird podcast, exploring life one story at a time. Hello friends, I'm Daniel Scherl. Today on the show, you may not know it, but you've watched him jump off buildings, get yanked out of a perfectly good plane, and even try to take down a gigantic transformer. For over 20 years, this renowned stuntman and actor has entertained you in some of the most successful television shows and movies, and has almost 200 IMDb credits to prove it, not to mention more than a few bumps and bruises along the way. In addition to his incredible skills as a performer, he's also a world-class jet skier, an athlete, a dedicated husband and father, and my goodness, if he isn't just a fantastically nice guy. It gives me great pleasure to welcome my friend Chris Gann. Chris, welcome to the show, buddy. How you doing?
Hey, I'm finally on Memories of a Moonbird.
Woo-hoo!
I'm doing great.
It's so great to have you here. Why don't we jump right in and you tell the fine folks where you were born and raised?
Born and raised in Reno, Nevada. Grew up on a goat farm.
Oh, cool.
All the way through my high school years, and spent a lot of time in Lake Tahoe. We had a place up there too, so I was on the water quite a bit. And I kind of feel like Lake Tahoe and Reno are my home.
That's very cool. How often do you go back and hang out there?
Honestly, not as much as I'd like. I used to have a lot of family there, and I don't anymore.
Is the goat farm still there?
The goat farm turned into a $20 million house.
Wow.
Believe it or not. You know how I'm sure when you go back to your hometown, you kind of reminisce, right? You go to all your favorite places. I went back to my where I grew up, and it's on this beautiful half-mile dead-end street on the north side of town. And there's this monstrosity of a house. I lived on about 8.5 acres, and the house takes up about 2.5 of those acres. And
Wow.
I looked it up on Zillow, and it's worth like $18 million. And it looked nothing like where I grew up.
So I guess good for the humans, bad for the goats.
Yeah. I guess that's just kind of, I was fortunate, Daniel. I grew up in a really great area. I was being on the farm was very quiet, very safe. I was just outside all the time, which kids, many kids don't get to do today. But being an older guy now, I look back and I realize how lucky I was to grow up like that and to be outside. And I know one of your questions was later on was if it had a impact on your career choice. And I think it did subconsciously, because I was out and I could kind of do whatever I wanted to do as a kid. Any crazy, stupid thing I could kind of do and figure out how to get myself out of it. So yeah, I have a lot of good feelings about the people in Reno and growing up there, and it's actually a wonderful place.
What was little Chris like as a child?
I was a free spirit. My parents would say I was a little bit introverted because I didn't like to travel, but I could do anything I wanted.
Now, you told me at some point that you had, I believe you either helped a baby cow come into the world or a baby goat, some kind of animal.
Yeah. I should probably clear that up. So yeah, I did grow up on a farm, and I wasn't that crazy about it, to be honest with you, because it was a ton of work. We had approximately 100 animals on our farm, and it wasn't like a big income producing farm. It's not like we're like, feeding everybody in Northern Nevada goat milk and goat cheese. That wasn't the case. My mom loved goats and animals. My dad didn't, but he was a businessman and he was successful. And my mom was happiest when she was out with her animals, but we all had to take care of them.
Yeah.
Like you take care of those animals at least twice a day. They get fed and milked in the morning and at night. And we were always delivering baby goats and baby sheep and cows and you name it. But yeah, the story you're referring to was I don't know, I would say I was around 10 or 11 years old, and my mom and dad went out to dinner. And this is before cell phones and everything. And we had a horse in labor. And the horse started kind of gurgling and making some noises. And usually my sister, who's very good with animals, would have been there taking care of it. But for some reason, she wasn't. And I called my mom at this restaurant, and they went and got her, just like kind of old fashioned, like the movie Casino. And they pulled my mom out. I go, Mom, this is what's happening. She goes, oh, you're going to have to put your hand up the horse, and she's probably breached. You're going to have to just move. She's, because I was kind of explaining to my mom, I was running back and forth from the kitchen to the phone out to the barn, explaining what I'm seeing, coming out of the back of the horse.
Yeah, and, not even cordless phones back then, right?
No, I was getting my workout. So she's like, okay, what you need to do is you need to push that hoof back in, and you need to move it over. So I had my hand deep in there, and I was doing what my mom told, and eventually we got it right, and they came home, and the baby was out of harm's way, and my mom actually did the official delivery, but I helped by moving it back into place so she could kind of rush home and save the the foal, and we ended up having that horse for quite a while.
But you've been arms deep inside of a horse. That's an experience for a child. Yeah.
I was past my elbow, Daniel. I'm not making that up either.
That's quite an experience to have as a young man.
I guess so. I mean, it didn't seem that unusual, really, being on a farm. And again, not a huge farm, not like I'm Farmer Joe making a living out there, but we did have a lot of animals, and there's always something like that. One of the things I hated is my dad would make me butcher chickens, and that sucked, but I had to do it. And I learned quickly that I don't like to hunt. And I think, I learned early when I had to butcher chickens and do stuff like that on the farm.
Did you ever become a vegetarian in your life because of that, or no?
I never felt the need for that, but I didn't enjoy doing it myself, and I didn't like it. I did it because I had to, as part of my chores, but
I'll say it's a fascinating thing because I also just cannot handle killing animals, but I will eat them. So it feels like there's a lot of guilt attached to that, like, if someone else kills them, I'll eat them, but I don't want to kill them. It's a weird thing.
Well, it is, but people do enjoy killing them. And I'm not saying people on farms enjoy killing animals, but I guess they don't mind it. Right. Hunters like to kill animals, and I'm not a hunter, but I have a lot of friends who are, and I respect the fact that they have the right to go hunt. And if we dive into that a little bit deeper, it's like I feel you have the right to do whatever you want, and I'm not gonna judge anybody for that, and I'm not gonna be angry that people like to hunt. But it's not for me. It's not in my makeup, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, Chris, what's a story that your parents would tell about you as a child?
I worked for my dad. He had an office, right? And when I was in high school and I was driving, he would let me clean his office every day. And I remember one time my dad, he always subscribed. He was a businessman. He got the Wall Street Journal, right? So he'd kind of keep them, like he would keep them as resources. But, then we would just have, like, in our basement, just thousands of pounds of paper that he would keep. And one time he goes, "Hey, Chris, I need you to take all those papers to the dump." I'm like, "Oh, geez, that's a lot of work." Okay. Here's $30. And I was with a friend of mine. I go, "Hey, let's throw these in." So we threw them all in the back of my truck, and it filled my truck up. Didn't get them all. And as I'm pulling out of the office driveway, there's another office across the street getting construction done, and there's a big dumpster there. I'm like, let's go dump them in there. Let's keep the $30. So we do that. We're not even sneaking. We're so ignorant at that age. We're like, we just we're just throwing them all in there. We went back, got the second load, emptied them in there. Go, "Hey, let's go to Taco Bell. I got $30. So a couple days go by. I think I'm the smartest guy in the world. And my dad gets a call from a businessman, goes, "Hey, I got 1,000 pounds of newspaper in my dumpster that I'm paying for construction. They all have your name on it." Because, they had the little subscription label on them. So I had to, and my friend wasn't around. I had to go get my ass and jump in that dumpster and pull those papers out and go to the dump like 4 days later.
You earned that Taco Bell, my friend.
Yeah, I did.
For sure. How would you describe your personality?
Oh man, that's another tough one. I think I'd almost, Daniel, you know me pretty well. I'd kind of have to ask you to give me a little help on that.
I would say you're a very sarcastic, very funny, loving guy who really, really passionately cares about his family and friends, but is a big jokester and the guy you want to hang out with and have on your team. Honestly.
Oh wow, shoot! See, I wouldn't have had anything nearly that cool. So thank you. I don't know if this answers your question, but I find joy in almost everything. And I think, that's maybe one of the reasons I've had longevity in this business is I enjoy every part of the process of this business. But that's gone way back, I enjoy the uncomfortable parts of things, being a stuntman, you kind of, sometimes you get, a friend of mine always says this, sometimes one day you're the hammer, one day you're the nail, right?
Yeah.
That means one day you're getting tackled by a 300-pound guy going through a window. And maybe the next day you're tackling a girl going through a window, and it's like, it's easy. But, you're the hammer or the nail, right? But I kind of enjoy every part of that. Like I kind of enjoy the whole journey of it. I don't mind the uncomfortable parts.
What's something about you that's still very distinctly Nevada?
Well, give me an example. You're from Ohio. Just give me a quick example about Ohioans.
I say hello to people on the street and we'll talk to strangers. That's something I grew up with in the Midwest. There's a level of kindness and respect for your community in general. You walk around the Midwest and most people will be, "How you doing today? Oh, how you doing today? Oh, yeah." And you'll just have random conversations. And I still do that, much to some friends' chagrin. Like we'll be out in public and I'll start up conversations with people, and sometimes people will be like, "Dude, we got to go." And I'm like, "Oh, just talking to that person seemed nice,
Yeah. Well, that's different from LA for understandable reasons. There's 20 million people here, but Nevada is, I think people are pretty upfront. Reno itself is called the biggest little city in the world. And it's funny because that there's over 400,000 or 500,000 people who live in the Reno area. And to me, that doesn't sound like a small city, right? But it's not a big city. So I guess, that it kind of does fall into that thing. But when I grew up in Reno, it's like, I felt like I knew everybody, like I knew everybody's shop. We knew everybody's business. I've been in California for 20 plus years, and there's no part of California that I've lived in that remotely feels like that. So that would be the one thing I think is different.
So when did you become interested in stunts and acting?
Well, it's funny. When I was in high school, I never thought of, I actually had an opportunity to be, to get an agent, and I just didn't have the confidence. My dad flew me to LA to meet one, and I met her, and I just didn't, it wasn't for me. And, my dad thought I would be good at it for whatever reason, but I passed on it. And I would tell girls in high school that I wanted to be a stuntman because I thought it was cool, but I had no intention of really being a stuntman. I just I just used to, do extreme stuff, and oh yeah, I'm going to be a stuntman. And I thought that sounds sexy. Yeah, I'm going to say that to all the girls. But I didn't honestly think of becoming a stuntman until I was working. I went to college to be a sports broadcaster, and I think you probably know this about me. I worked for ESPN,
yep.
And I was a professional jet ski racer, and I was lucky enough in my teens and 20s to race all over the world. I don't know, 10 or 12 countries all over the United States every summer. As I was doing this, I was a huge, I've always been a huge sports fan and athlete, and I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. So I went to school for that. And as I was kind of maybe peaking in my career and finishing college at the same time, I kind of realized for the first time that I didn't want to race jet skis professionally my whole life. And an opportunity came up from a friend of mine. He said, "Hey, I'm going to quit jet skiing and I'm going to go be a stuntman, and I need somebody." And he was doing the ESPN work on TV. He goes, "I want to put your name in." And really? Yeah. So ESPN screen tested me, and I was lucky enough to, with his recommendation, to get the job. And that was like 2 years of work, and I was loving it. I was making money. I was in my early 20s. I was making a good living. And then one day after a couple of years, I get a call from the production company, and they go, "Hey, we lost our sponsor. Both shows are off the air. Budweiser pulled out, and there's no longer going to be a televised on this tour."
And what show was this?
It was a Budweiser Jet Sports Racing Tour, and it was on ESPN. And then they had an ESPN2 show. And then I also actually had a show at the same time for a different racing tour on Fox Sports Net, which I did interviews for. And all those shows went away in 1 year. So I went from having these 3 great jobs to not having anything. And I was kind of sitting at home and mulling, what am I going to make how am I going to make a living, to that same friend who got me the ESPN interview in the first place. Fast forward a year and a half later, he calls me up and goes, "Hey, I'm doing this stunt show at Universal Studios in Hollywood. It's called Waterworld." He goes, they've looked at some guys and they don't jet ski well enough. They will teach you how to do the stunts if you want to do it. And I'm like, yeah, I need a job. So I drove down, and I had to audition for that. And because of my friend, his name, by the way, is Larry Rippenkroger. He's still one of my best friends. He got me in the door, and I auditioned, and I sucked at everything except for the jet skiing. I could swim and I could run around because I was an athlete, but as far as the stunts, I was hopeless. And but they go, "That's all right, we'll teach you." And lucky enough, I had a 2-month training session, and at this whole time, I'm thinking, "Oh yeah, this is good. I'm making a little bit of money." But that 2 months changed my life. First of all, I loved all the guys and girls. I loved the stunt community. I was surrounded by stunt performers, and they were just freaking great people. And it felt like I was racing again. I had some adrenaline going. I was kind of done with jet ski racing, but this is something that kind of fed, my athletic side, that I still needed. And I'm like, this is pretty cool, and then the show started, and I was performing in front of 2,000 or 3,000 people, and I loved it. And then I was learning the acting. I'm like, I just fell in love with it. And then I kind of, strangely enough, when you talk to a lot of, actors and they consider themselves artists, I think when I looked at the business, it was after my dad gave me the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You remember that book?
Oh yeah.
So I read that book, and I'm like, oh yeah, money while you sleep, how you make, money, different, I'm trying to learn all this stuff. And as I'm getting into the stunt industry, I'm doing this live show, people are telling me about film and television and how the incomes work and the residuals, right? You can do this and you're going to get a residual, and it's going to show again, you're going to get another check. I'm like, really? So I'm like, oh wow, I think I can do that. I think I can act. I watch TV. I think I can do that. I know I can do the stunts now. I've been doing them for 2 months. Now I just need to, get into TV. So there's a moment there that it was a financial decision. Like this could be this can be something I can make a lot of money doing as well as I enjoy.
Yeah.
So at that point, I really started, studying the acting and comedy and continuing to get better at stunts. I always loved every part of it.
And so my understanding is though, so you went from jet skis, you got this great opportunity, you went to do Waterworld at Universal, and then that was really the stepping stone that got you into serious acting training and more stunt training. And from there, your career has blossomed ever since, correct?
Well, you made it sound pretty. Yeah.
Well, I'm summarizing.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good summarization. That was 25 years though.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about some of the progress of their career, but I'm curious, in the prime of your stunt career, especially for people that might listen to the show and have an interest in doing stunts, what kind of athletic discipline does that require? Do you do martial arts or yoga or some kind of training?
What's interesting about our stunt community is that there are just radically talented people, men and women, from just every corner of the earth, and they have the most amazing skill sets. And some guys can turn one skill into a living. Like we got a couple guys who were ex-race car drivers, and they get in cars and they're at that level that, you see Fast and Furious and Transformers, and they're jumping cars and, and they don't do anything else, and they make a very, very good living. Right.
Yeah.
Then you have gymnasts who, or a good friend of mine who I've worked with even from Waterworld. He was a, high level gymnast, scholarship to Berkeley. And he just developed his all around skills, and he's still, mid 40s, he's still in his prime. I hire him. It's like he can do anything.
So you're saying that there's not a singular discipline for athleticism for a stunt person. It's kind of like whatever your genre of stunts are, each person has their own routine, if you will.
Yeah, somewhat, for sure. Like I consider myself like I was an all around basic athlete, right? I played football. I played baseball. I was an excellent snow skier. I was a ski instructor. I was a snowboard instructor. I did all these sports, but there's guys who are professional, there's professional football players as stuntmen. There's professional baseball players, so my level, but what I got good at, Daniel, is I learned everything, right? I learned early in my career, it's like, I'm a good size. I'm a good fit to double actors. Like there's a lot of actors my size who are, more have my build. And I was like, okay, I can be a stunt double. And then I was good with acting, like the stunt acting. So those are the two kind of genres in the stunt industry that I focused on first 15 years of my career. And I worked heavily, I was lucky, and I'm knock on wood. I still work a lot, but those two things kind of fed my family in the stunt business, Now, granted, there's other guys who are good at rigging, and there's some guys who are just awesome at cars. Like I said, they might have a different career path, and we cross paths, but they're probably not quite as well-rounded as I may be in all this stuff, because they don't have to be.
Well, Chris, let me ask you, I'm curious, how many different kinds of stunts have you done in your career?
I think it'd be easier to name the stunts I haven't done, honestly. And I'm not saying that to brag or anything. I'm just trying to, why don't you tell me a weird stunt and I'll tell you if I've done it or not.
Have you jumped off a helicopter?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Really? Have you crashed a car?
Yes.
Have you jumped off a hot air balloon?
No.
Hey, I found one.
I did jump off a bunch of bridges, but never a hot air balloon.
Some of the questions I think listeners would love to know the answers to. And if they don't, I do. How often have you been injured in your career?
Yeah, a lot. You get beat up a lot. You get a lot of wear and tear. I'm knocking on wood right now because I've been a lot luckier than most. As far as serious injuries go, I don't think you'll meet a stuntman my age who hasn't had multiple concussions and had knees replaced and injured joints and stuff like that. But overall, I'm doing pretty good.
Now, I would assume that there's obviously with the stunt union and everything, there's a ton of regulations and rules and how things are done and stunt training to make sure as much as possible people don't get hurt. But is it fairly frequent that people get injured no matter what, even with all the safety?
Yeah. And let me just tell you, safety in today's film and television world is a million miles ahead of where it was when I started. Production companies understand that it's better not to hurt somebody. It's cheaper. I think back then it wasn't cheaper. It was like, hey, in fact, whatever happens, let's just get this cool stunt, and that guy will get better or whatever. But they're stuntmen. But now it's like, stuntmen. We have a little bit more. By the way, there's no stunt union. We are part of Screen Actors Guild, so we're all under kind of the same umbrella as the actors. The actors are. But even with the safety precautions, we still get hurt quite a bit, and a lot of it is a repetition. Like you and Jolene, you guys work a lot when you're on set, and you're doing an acting scene, you might do that scene 12 or 14 times, right? You might turn around, you get over here, you want to, I went over the shoulder.
Yep.
You got all these different angles. Well, it's pretty much the same with stunts. So let's say I go do a stunt and I'm falling down a flight of stairs. I'm like, oh yeah, that went great. Okay, yeah, we're going to move camera. We're going to do it again. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Oh yeah, cool. Got it. Oh no, I want to get one more shot of, here. I'm going to kind of get your, oh, okay. Shit. Now I've done 3 of them. Now my bell's ring a little bit. Okay. Hey, we're going to do one more. And the first couple are great. And then you start kind of working your way down and doing 5 or 6 or 7, that's kind of when you lose a little muscular control and you just increase the odds of something happening, on a stunt. So it's really just kind of the wear and tear of the repetitiveness that causes a lot of injuries. I
assume you've lost friends. I know there have been deaths in the stunt industry.
Yeah. Last year was a devastating year for the stunt industry. We, I'm not even going to get into the names because it would just go on too long. But, 3 people in particular, there was a lot more than that, but 3 people were a huge impact on me and my friends and my career. And I'm just one person. And you could ask any working stunt professional and they'd feel the same way. But none of those 3 I'm talking about even died doing stunts. One died in an accident. Another one died of cancer.
Well, Chris, is the stunt community super close knit? Like, do you know stuntmen and stunt women from all around the world? And do you guys all kind of generally know each other?
The American stunt community is very close. There's definitely different communities in different regions, right? There's the Los Angeles stunt community, which I'm amazingly close with, right? But I've been working in Atlanta quite a bit for the last 5 years, and I'm close with a lot of that group. So we are very tight knit, and it doesn't take a lot for us to get together and work together and to become great friends. I mean, it's stunt people working stunt people, especially, people who really make this their living. We just get along. We get along better than any other crew or any other unit set that's on set. And that's, you can ask anybody. You can ask any of the grips or the actors or hair and makeup. We get along better than any of those guys.
Bit of a brothers and sisters in arms kind of thing.
We are. I think you work with these people and you're in harm's way with them, and we look out for one another. And there's just something, and it's. I wish I could put in better words than that, but we're very close.
Well, I think Jolene would call that, they call that shared adversity, and that then tends to bond people, Yeah,
that's a kind of a sexy thing to say. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna start throwing that around, see if I get some points at the next stunt job I have.
Guys, this is shared adversity. Well, Chris, what's the hardest stunt that you've ever done and the most scared you've ever been doing a stunt?
This is the most commonly asked question you have when you meet people who I've never met a stuntman, right? My answer is, I've done some bigger stunts in this for sure, but when I did Triple X in 2002 was like my big break. Like that was my first big movie. It was a Vin Diesel movie, and I had an acting role where I did my own stunts. And one of the stunts we did is we got ripped out of a back of a military cargo plane.
I remember that, yeah, as the plane's lifting off, right?
Right. Now to make that the movie magic to make that happen was we had a plane and we built a runway out in Simi Valley, and we were all attached to one line, and the plane was going to go 25 miles an hour as fast as it could and then take off. And as soon as that line was tight, it was going to rip us all out. That's the basic of the stunt. In the movie, it looks like we're getting thrown out with parachutes, but this is how they had to make it work. Right. So again, I this is very early in my career, and this stunt was we saw it done with dummies. And the dummies' body parts scattered everywhere. They just got dissipated, right? So the guys I was doing the stunt with, they were a little more experienced than me, but we were all a little wary of it because it wasn't the kind of stunt that like, oh, I'm a good athlete, I could handle this. It was such a jolt, like it was such a physical jolt, and we were going directly to the deck. And the thing we had to worry about is getting our neck in tight so we didn't break our necks. It wasn't something that I felt like we could overcome with, quick feet or, whatever. It was just something we're going to have to do, and it's dangerous. And we did it. We only were able to do it once. I was in the middle. The first guy went out. He did hit his head, got knocked out cold for 10 minutes, had to go get a CAT scan, was in the hospital for a few days.
Oh my God.
The guy doubling Vin Diesel tore a vertebrae up in his back and was out for 8 months. I was in the middle, and I was very lucky to where I cut my face up a little bit, and my knee was a little jacked up. But I was like, I wanted to kind of do it again because there's a lot of money to it. And but if we did it again, it could have been me getting all jacked up like these other guys. Another thing that made that scary is I knew about that stunt, and then I acted on the movie for like 2.5 months, knowing that stunt was coming. And people telling me it's like, oh, you got to be careful. This is this is bad, and. But it was the guys who put that stunt together did a great job. The coordinators on that, they did a wonderful job putting it together. And unfortunately, we had a few injuries, but those guys both those other guys came back strong and continued to work and still do.
Do stuntmen and women get scared?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember ever being scared. I remember being kind of excited, but you just have to train for it. And if the stunt, if you do it the way you're supposed to do it and everything works out right, you're going to be okay. Plain and simple. Variables happen, and that's when the injuries happen, right? And it could be a variable that it could be the variable could be in your performance. It could be have something to do with somebody else. It could have something to do with a piece of equipment. There's always things that can happen, but for you to be scared about what could happen, that's not the way to keep a clear mind as a stuntman.
But let's say you're standing 10 stories up and you got to jump onto a bag. I mean, I'd be shitting myself, man.
Well, I do high falls, and I'm not crazy about them, but there's guys that can do 10-story high falls, wake up and throw them in a shower for 5 minutes, and they'll go to a 100-foot high fall like nothing. Those guys are that's nothing to those guys. To me, I'd have to kind of work my way up to it and practice to get to that level to do that. But there's guys who are ready, could do it. I could call a buddy of mine right now and he could go do it. And it wouldn't, and I promise you he wouldn't be scared because he was also a high diver, like high level, cave diving, or the flips off the high dives into the ocean, so those guys, that's nothing to those guys.
Well, have you ever been in a situation where you thought, oh God, I'm going to die?
No. A good friend of mine who's an amazing stuntman and an amazing friend, who I always call even to this day when I need advice, like business advice. He told me, he goes, in one of my first bigger movies, I was working with him, and he said that when you look at a stunt, always have an out. And it's kind of hard to explain, but you kind of visualize, you're talking through the stunt, and you know what everybody wants, and you know what it's supposed to look like, right? But if shit goes bad, what do? What's your out?
Yeah.
And there's sometimes you don't have an out, but most of the time you do. But it's this is the kind of things you're thinking about. You're not thinking about, oh shit, I'm scared, because that, you need to be focused. You really don't have time to, you shouldn't be doing this business if you're scared. And I think you asked me another question on this is, have I ever had to say no?
Well, that was gonna be my next question actually, is have you ever actually had to tell a director no or refuse to do a stunt because you thought it was too dangerous?
There's a lot of things you want to do before saying no. First of all, you want to, if there's some issue with it, what can you do? What can we do to still get the shot? So instead of me going, hey, F you, I don't want to do this. Maybe I'll come to him and go, hey, we had some problems with this. What can we do to make this work better? What can we do to make this safer and still get the shot? So I always, I think it's important to delegate you need to figure out solutions. You don't need to tell anybody no. There's times you have to do that, but I've never had to shut down somebody like that. It's just kind of not my style. Now, granted, if I thought somebody was being reckless and they're telling me to do something and it wasn't right, I wouldn't do it. But the people I work with, I just work with such great people that nobody really at the highest levels, they just don't act like that. To be honest with you, we're not cowboys. Stuntmen are professional precision guys, and we're trying to find the sexiest way to do a stunt, but also to be safe.
Well, I know one of the stunts you told me about that I thought was cool was when you did that wire gig on Transformers, and I think the audience would love to hear what that was like. Oh man, yeah, that's a great experience for me doing that. I did one of the Transformers movies, and my first stunt on my first day, Monday morning, 6 a.m, middle of Chicago, summer day, beautiful. I'm about 100 feet up in the air on a big scissor lift. And my stunt is I'm finishing a skydiving stunt, right? So I've already shot me diving out the building, and now you're shooting me coming down onto the ground, and I'm wrapping myself around the legs of a transformer, trying to trip it. Okay, so I'm on a wire, and I'm 100 feet up in the air on the scissor lift, and my goal is to kind of push myself off so I can get this kind of circular motion, thus wrapping myself around the legs of the transformer. The director comes up to me and he shows me like a little schematic on an iPad. And this is, I don't know, 8 years ago.
So, we don't have the technology we have today, but he says, this is what I want. This is exactly, do it just like this. And he shows me a stick figure, doing this, and the stick figure's got his hands out and his feet together, and he's kind of flying around. I'm like, and that's all he told me. We had a very short conversation. So he told me how to do it. I'm going to do it. So I dove off there and I got a really good push off the scissor lift, and I got that movement going. And now remember, there's no transformer. So I'm pretending to wrap my leg, my parachute line around it. Anyway, I come down, hit the ground, and I slide, and I pop up, and I pull my gun, and I boom, 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 and I start shooting. And I'm like, I'm a bad motherfucker. I just killed that stunt. And all of a sudden I hear this cut, and I hear this, what the F are you doing? I'm getting yelled at by the director, and he's like, this isn't stunt school. What the hell are you doing? You think you're Superman flying around? You're supposed to be struggling. You're fighting a transformer. You're just a dude. I'm like, well, the stick figure the stick figure. You're going to move. You're a human. And I was like, oh my gosh. First of all, I'm not as studly as I thought I was. And I'm going to get fired on my first day. I'm supposed to be there 4 months. And so I, Central, this comes down, picks me up. We go up again. I struggle, do it a couple times. And I didn't get yelled at for at least till after lunch on that day. But
that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's not stunt school line I'll never forget. One of those stories you like to tell.
Yeah. Well, who's been your favorite celebrity to double? I know you've doubled quite a few.
Oh man, I have my favorites, and it's not necessarily because of the person, but it's maybe the project. And I've been able to double guys that I'm real fans of their work. Being an actor as well. I doubled John Hamm on Mad Men. I think I doubled him 4 or 5 episodes.
What did he need stunts for? I watched that show.
Everybody says that. And, it would be it wouldn't be real tricky stuff. I think I got to drive one of those older cars for him. One time he was on drugs. He saw himself dead in a swimming pool. Oh. Another time he fell down a flight of stairs in a drunken fight with his wife. I mean, he's Don Draper. Right?
Yeah.
He's like, he does cool stuff like that. But that was such an amazing project to work on, to work with the creators and to see how serious they took the show. And I had a 3.5 hour fitting job interview to get that job. Usually it's like, hey, this is my double, and I come in and I'll double somebody. But they were very specific on how I walked and how I looked in the clothes and how that. And then just to watch John Hamm work was wonderful. I really enjoyed that. And I also was Liev Schreiber's stunt double on Ray Donovan. And I can give you the exact same description. First of all, Liev, in 1996, I was Liev's stand-in to get my SAG card. And it was his first big movie. And I told him, yeah, I'm getting my SAG card. I'm an actor and a stuntman. He goes, well, you get your card and you can be my stuntman. I'm like, yeah. And I didn't see him for like 25 years. And then we end up, and I'm his stunt double on Ray Donovan. And to see him again was special. He remembered. And then to watch him, to do the stunts on that show, that was a very physical show. But to watch him work with John Voight and the cast of that show,
yeah,
and see them create scenes. Oh my gosh, what a fun experience that was.
Well, what does it feel like to actually crash through a window?
When you go through a window, and this goes to a lot of stunts actually, you need to kind of attack that window. Right? Like
this is special breakaway glass too. It's not regular glass, right?
There's a couple different types of glass. There's candy glass, and then there's a glass where they'll put a charge on, and some will be on a button, and you'll hit the glass, and as you're hitting it, they'll hit the button and it'll explode. They both have their pros and cons, and you get cut to shit on both of them. You get little cuts. Very rarely will you get out of a window gag without getting little cuts here and there. Maybe you go through a window with candy glass and you lie there dead, but you're lying in the candy glass. And when you get up, you're just covered in it. So you get little paper cuts and stuff like that, the other glass, or maybe a bigger piece of glass would have would have somebody on the button, and that would be a little bit more, a little bit more dangerous. But I'm going to go back to what I said about attacking that glass, because you asked what it's like to go through it. When I go through it, it's like, I'm going to go through it. I'm going to tackle that. So I want to be aggressive, and I want to send myself through it really hard. And it feels great, but it just feels like you're throwing you want to throw yourself through it so hard that it's going to break, and that you're going to give, the reaction. So, I don't know how to explain it without saying, I'm attacking that glass, and I kind of look at it as my enemy for a minute. like right before I go through it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. But I am curious if even in the stunt world, I were to pick you up and throw you through a real glass window, isn't that still going to hurt? I mean, aren't you going to get,
Yes.
scratched up and possibly really fucked up?
Yeah. There's some directors, I won't name names, who like to use real glass, and it's special circumstances. It's not like I'm going through it in a freaking, I'm dressed like Van Damme with no shirt on, or, you're not going to go through real glass on that. But, I, on a big movie, I had to go through real glass. It was scored, but I was dressed like a SWAT guy. So when I went through that glass and I went head first, I had all the SWAT equipment on. I had the goggles, I had the helmet, I had the gloves, I was full sleeves. So what I made sure I did is when I went through, I had my arms up protecting my ears, which were exposed, but my arms were protected by the clothes, and then I had the gloves so I could punch through the window. And there's a technique to go into doing these things. Very rarely do we go through real glass. That was it may have happened 4 or 5 times in my whole career, and I've probably gone through 100 windows.
And what about what it's like to take a fall and land on one of those big bags? What does that feel like?
It feels great if you kill it. Like, let's just say you do it and you hit your mark and you land perfect. It's like, oh, I can do 100 of those. But those times that you just, like, one time I got thrown out of a closed barn door, like by another actor. I got thrown through a barn door and the door exploded and I had to land in a bag, and I damn near missed it, and that hurt. There was nothing fun about that. I landed on wood landed on me. I bounced off the bag and hit the ground.
Oh,
that just sucked 10 different ways. But when I, there's been a couple times when I'm on a thing in action and I fall and I just hit my mark, I'm like, oh shit, feels great.
That's cool.
Feels cool.
Well, how has being a stuntman helped you in your everyday life, do you think?
So I kind of go back to jet ski racing. When you used to go into the first turn of a jet ski race, it'd be like 16 to 20 guys all at the same time. And there'd be real small visibility. Everybody'd be going fast. There'd be a lot of crashes and energy around you. And you did it so many times that everything slowed down. And I think any racers can relate to what I'm saying right now, who've raced anything at a high level. When you're in the shit, everything slows down. And that's just how you can kind of pick yourself through it. And when you're a stuntman, you need to have that same kind of, everything needs to slow down when you're doing your gag. So because I've done that so much, so deep into my life, it's like, I feel like I can handle myself that same way when I get into high stress situations in my real life. I think I can just, I think about my breathing. I think about, I can get centered in high stress situations, where if I was just, I had more of a normal job, hey, if fireman could probably have the same answer. He rushes into burning buildings, right? It's like, something happens in his normal everyday life that stresses him. He's like, it's nothing like jumping out of that building.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I feel it's kind of the same way as a stuntman a little bit.
Do you prefer doing physical stunts or driving stunts more?
Definitely the physical stunts got me into the business. I didn't really have a driving background. The jet ski racing definitely helped my driving skills, just racing. But yeah, I love the physical stuff. Now I'm getting a little older. The car stuff's really fun, but I don't know. It really depends on the stunt, Daniel. Like, I've done some. A lot of times I'll just, drop her off. I'm a cab driver. Drop her off and then spin the tires. Okay.
How excited!
So I don't know. I think the physical stuff is pretty cool. It's fun being in front of the camera. It's fun being put in the spot like you are in a car. But it really comes down to the stunt. They're both great.
What's the weirdest or most unique thing that you've done as a stuntman?
Oh man, see, I dressed up as a female cheerleader and got hit in the head in a Katy Perry music video. And I was the ugliest woman you've ever seen. And I was so shocked by how ugly I was that it was hard for me to kind of remember how to do the stunt. That's just one thing that popped into my head. There's so many awkward things we've done.
Which Katy Perry video is this?
I'd have to hear the song, to be honest with you. My kids know it.
Dude, you got to find out, because I have to find a still from it. Is there a picture of you in the video dressed up as a girl? Like, are you in it, or is you just the stunt person?
I get hit, and I think I'm doubling somebody. So you'll see me get hit and get knocked out, like with a basketball. I take a basketball to the face and flat back.
Dude, I would love to see this. That's hilarious. If someone listening to this podcast is interested in getting into stunts, what would you tell them?
Hard thing to dip your toe into. Yeah, it's kind of like, if you want to do it, you need to do it. But if you're not sure, you probably, it might not be for you. It's a really hard thing to do part-time. if you want to get into stunts and you have the background, one, make sure you have high pain tolerance. Two, make sure you're just dedicated to the business of being a stunt performer. And if you have that and you're good, I'd say, move to a market. You could move to a market like Atlanta, or you could move to New Mexico. You can move to places that have a lot of production, but maybe not quite as competitive. And you could start training and meeting the people in the field. And that would be a start. Also, I would look into live shows. My start was the Waterworld live show, and there's live shows. There's shows all over the place. There's, people I've seen, amazing sword fighters come out of live shows. I've seen, amazing motorcycle riders come out of the Batman show, just different things. So you could look at live shows and put yourself in an arena with other stunt performers and see if you really like it. There are schools. I have a friend who has a school in California that I'd recommend. They're expensive, and they're for people who really want to do this business. When I say expensive, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's like a week's worth of pay to do this school once you get onto a film. So theoretically, it's not a lot of money, but to somebody who may not be working and starting a career, it's like, oh, wow, that's a lot.
At what age do people generally stop doing stunts? Like, is there a time when it's just not safe to do them because you're getting older and your body doesn't react the way it used to?
When I started, there wasn't many people in their 50s doing stunts. I mean, hardly any, like doing physical stunts. Now, man, it has totally changed. There's guys in their 60s. You remember I was telling you earlier about the high fall guy, right? He said, I got a guy who could wake him up and slap him in the face, and he could do a 100-foot high fall right now. That guy's 64 years old. Wow. And he's still doing huge stunts. And he keeps himself in awesome shape. He looks like he's, 45. And the evolution of our business has changed. The strides we've made in health and fitness and nutrition and recovery from 25 years ago is so huge. And the business is a little safer now. Back in the cowboy days, they did gnarly stuff, and they didn't have good pads, and they would fall and they would just wreck themselves. We don't get wrecked like that anymore. We have these really high, we spend a lot of money on our safety pads, but they're designed, they're made with Kevlar, and they're designed to fit under your wardrobe.
That's
and you
cool.
can take a beating, and and if you take care of yourself, your body can last a long time now.
Man, that is awesome. And I love technology, so that's cool. I am curious, would you say that there's been one key to your success so far in your life?
Yeah, early on, it's honesty. Never take a job you can't do. Remember you asked me earlier, Daniel, if I was ever scared to take it, to do a stunt. Mm-hmm. And I told you I wasn't. It's because I never took a job that I wasn't qualified to do. Mm. And as much as I may have needed that job or wanted the money, like the price tag that came with doing that stunt, I knew it wasn't worth me trying to do it and like, oh shit, I hope that works out okay. You can't do that. You can't put the person who's hiring you in jeopardy, and you can't put yourself in jeopardy. So once you start doing that, you kind of put yourself at a level where like, I can trust that guy. Like, yeah, I'm going to put Gann in that spot. Oh yeah. He doesn't feel good driving, that he's never done that gag. He told me, like, it's like they call me, and if I can do it, I tell them. And if I can't, I can't. And that's probably day one stuff. You do not lie to people in the business. You never take a job and I've seen people do it, and it's horrible. It's horrible, but that's day one stuff. You're honest about your abilities. Hey, I'm a good, well-rounded stuntman. That doesn't mean I can do every stunt.
Well, Chris, you've had a really incredible career, both as a stuntman and an actor, and you have a really great family. Obviously, you've been married a really long time. You have good kids, But I'm curious when it comes specifically to your career. And first of all, congratulations on all those things, because what a bunch of awesome accomplishments. But also, do you have any specific goals in the industry for your career?
It's funny you say that, and I thank you for that. And all those things you said, I'm grateful for. But I still love this business, and I've honestly feel like my best work's ahead of me. I know for a fact it is in acting, stunts. I'm really grateful, but I have so many goals, and I want to be a series regular as an actor. I want to win an Emmy. I want to win an Academy Award. These are goals of mine as an actor. Yeah. I want to be the first stuntman to win an Academy Award and send out love to my stunt brothers and sisters, because they've been fighting for their own Academy Award for so many years. Their stunt performers are not recognized by the Academy, even though makeup department and hair department and wardrobe and set deck and everything else gets an Academy Awards. For some reason, stunts don't. And we've been fighting for that for a long time. And I'm excited to win my Academy Award as an actor and say, and give love to my stunt brothers and sisters and say, hey, I'm going to help you guys get that.
That's very cool. With almost 200 IMDb credits, which is beyond impressive. If you weren't an actor and a stuntman, though, what do you think you'd be?
Oh, man. You know, when I was fresh out of high school, kind of just starting jet ski racing, I thought about being a fireman. My uncle was a fireman, and he was a battalion chief. So he's kind of high up, and he took me through the physical part of it. And, I liked it. And I actually took a fire science class at college. And then, man, I fell in love with jet skiing, and it's so weird, Daniel. I may go off on a tangent here, but once I found a jet ski and I fell in love with it, I couldn't think of anything else that I wanted to do. Right. And I know you asked me about my career and what I would have done, but that jet ski that I got and the love I felt for it, that led me to where I am now. My dad's like, oh, that's a passing thing. You become a businessman. You're not gonna be a jet skier. And all I cared about was jet skiing and going to the lake first thing in the morning and riding by myself and riding, just, doing everything I could to be on my jet ski. And that, I told this story how I got my first stunt job. It's because I knew how to jet ski. And it's like, and I got my first acting job because I was a stuntman. So I followed my passion, and it led me to where I am now, But
you still haven't answered the question, which is, if you weren't an actor and stuntman, what would you be?
A sports broadcaster, for sure. Yeah, sorry, I went overboard on that, but I remember, I'd be on ESPN or I'd be doing sports. I was pretty good at that.
Well, Chris, what would be the title of your autobiography?
I'm going to pass on that one. Honestly, you know what? I just don't have anything for you. Like I'm not done with life yet. So I just.
Well, why can't that be the title? Why can't that be the title? I'm not done with life yet.
Not a very good title, Danny. I want something sexy. Come on.
Do you have a favorite childhood book?
Where the Wild Things Are.
Why is that?
Remember that book?
Of course, yeah. Classic.
God, I love that kid's in his room. He goes to bed and he kind of wakes up and he's in a forest with that monster. I just love that. I could read that book over and over. And I had really cool wallpaper in my room when I was a kid. And I kind of thought, that could be me. I could wake up and then be on this, in this different universe with this monster going, I just love that book.
What was the first movie you saw that made you cry?
I cry in a lot of movies. It doesn't take a lot to get me crying. Back then, I think I cried in fear in The Shining. I was really scared watching it. And I think I cried a little bit thinking that kid was going to get killed. And I was like the youngest person in the theater watching that. And that's my first memory of like true emotion in a movie.
Has your life focus changed at all from when you were, 20 and 30 versus now?
Oh, yeah.
How so?
Yeah. When I came into the business, I had a huge ego. I came from racing jet skis, and I thought this was going to be kind of easy. And, you can't really make it in this business with a big ego. I don't think. There's exceptions, of course, but when you don't know, like I didn't know anybody, I didn't have any connections, and I was starting kind of on my own. And, you get shut down so much. You need to kind of get an attitude adjustment right away. And you need to understand, the part of the business. So the difference is right now, I enjoy every part of this process of this business. I enjoy the auditions. I enjoy preparing. I enjoy taping the auditions, or I enjoy going into the room and performing for casting. I enjoy the fittings. I enjoy everything. And a lot of times I don't get the parts, but I don't give a shit because I enjoyed all the other pieces of it. Yeah, okay, I didn't get that part, but man, I really enjoyed reading that role. That was really fun. That was good work. So to me, I appreciate every part of the business, not just my successes, but my, the times when I didn't succeed. And I would have told myself as a younger person, 20 or 30, it's like, hey, prepare more. Don't think you're hot shit, and don't play like a monkey, like you think you can do everything. Now, when I audition for a role and I get a role, it's like you're going to see me as that person in that character. I'm playing a character. Back then, I think I was just, trying to play like I was just trying to play it like I saw other guys do it on TV or whatever. I don't know. I didn't have the appreciation for it I do now.
Well, what do you do with your off hours? What are your hobbies?
Big mountain biker. Love to snow ski. I spend a lot of time with my family. We have 3 teen kids, and this has been a year where we've been together a lot, obviously, and I love being with them. I love being with my family. But yeah, I love golf. I love tennis. I played tennis in college for a year. And so, I think most of my stuff is sports related, like I do in my free time.
It's 8:00 at night. You have the house to yourself and you're going to put on some music and just dance like crazy. What song would you put on? What would be your jam?
We got this family theme song that we sing in the cars when we sing together all the time. You remember Squeeze Box by The Who?
No.
Mama's got a squeeze box. She lays on her chest. Daddy comes home. He never gets no rest because she plays all night and the music's all right. Mama's got a squeeze box. Daddy never sleeps at night.
That's awesome.
I don't think I'm going to get any Grammys for that, but yeah, that's our little family theme song.
That's cool.
I'm a country music lover, but that song, that's something that we will always sing together. It's a special song in our hearts.
What did you make for dinner last night?
My wife's a great cook. I kind of eat when it's me cooking, Daniel. It's like 4 things. It's always the same, and like a lot of breakfast for dinner, a lot of egg sandwiches. But my wife cooks awesome. She salmon. We had salmon, vegetables, and rice last night. Nice.
Do you actually have a favorite food?
Yeah, love French fries, nice. And I love chips. Those I eat. I'm a pretty healthy eater, but man, I could get myself some French fries every day.
Yeah. You and me both, man.
Yeah, they're the best.
Well, if you could sit down in some really old-timey pub with one person from all of human history, alive or dead, excluding your own family members or any kind of religious prophet, who would you like to sit down with? What would you drink? And what's the first question you would ask them?
Oh, man. I don't want to disqualify myself. My dad passed. I know I can't include him in this, but it was one of those things where I talked to my dad a lot on the phone, but I didn't get to see him the last 3 or 4 years. And I always was so busy, and, you never think somebody's going to go away, and he did. And I just really regret not seeing him. And what I would do for 4 hours more with my dad, what I would give for that.
I hear you. My dad passed a couple of years ago, so.
Yeah, I remember.
But you can't pick family members, so
yeah,
who'd you pick?
I know.
Is there anybody in history you would just love to talk to?
If I'm going to spend 4 hours with somebody in a bar, I think I'd like to pick the brain of like my favorite actor is Daniel Day-Lewis. The guy's done so much work. It'd be really fun to talk about how, his experience through all that and how he got to that and what his life's like. I'd like to hear Daniel Day-Lewis on your podcast, Daniel.
Me too. Yeah. Well, let's arrange that.
Yeah.
What would you drink? What would you and Daniel drink?
I'm a non-drinker. I was a bad drunk. I quit drinking when I was 18 and I haven't drunk anything since. And that it's been, it's a promise I made myself, and I haven't even had a sip of anything. No toast, no nothing. It's like,
it doesn't have to be alcohol. Do you have a favorite drink, like iced tea or water or
yeah,
soda?
It'd be iced tea. Probably be iced tea.
Iced tea.
And then I'd try to hold. I tried not to drink too much because if Daniel Day-Lewis is talk, I don't want to have to go take a piss every 10 minutes. So I might just kind of nurse that bad boy.
And so you and Daniel Day-Lewis are sitting down. You got a couple of iced teas. What's the first thing you'd ask him?
Why did you agree to meet me, dude? You're like just me, the stunt guy who wanted to talk to you. But I guess I'm glad you're here. And
wait, what if he was like, dude, you did Delirium. I had to come see you.
He goes, yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis would ask me, it's like, how did you get through that dog shit movie and actually have fun doing it? And then I'd say, how did you have fun doing My Left Foot and crawling around on your ass for, 4 months? So then it would just evolve, Daniel. It would evolve into this brilliant conversation with two creative minds figuring out how to change the world while drinking iced tea.
Chris, if you could travel in time, where would you go and why?
It's funny. I was such a fan of the TV series Mad Men, and it was so fun to watch the 60s and the 50s, that they portrayed. But, I've been lucky. I feel like I'm really fortunate to have lived where I've, this period of time where I've lived. Like, I grew up, I didn't have internet. I didn't have, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have technology really. We had 8-track tapes when I was a little kid. And now, we're here and we got, all this. I think I'd want to go in the future, Daniel, maybe 100 years, 150 years in the future when I'm, not going to be here. It'd be really curious to see what the world's like. And
do we have flying cars?
Yeah. Do we have the Jetsons? Is the Jetsons a real thing finally?
Yeah.
Or are we still alive? Or, just all the theories we've seen. It'd just really be cool to see what it really is like. Because you know what? Every theory from the 80s and 90s, there's nothing like it is. Nobody was that close. Except for the Jetsons, maybe. Who knows?
We do have video phone, which is cool.
Yeah.
What's your guilty TV pleasure?
For as long as I can remember, my family and I sit down and we watch The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. And even that awful bad Bachelor in Paradise. We don't miss those. And honestly, it's a strange show, but it's just so fun to be with the family, like to all sit down and do something together.
That's
and
cool.
We all kind of laugh at it. So I'm a proud Bachelor fan, as my whole family is.
What quality do you most admire in human beings?
Kindness.
Yeah, you and me both. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of wonderful qualities, and you can appreciate people who have them. But I don't know, that just like the random acts of kindness is it's just special,
Well, Chris Gann, the stuntman, are you afraid of dying?
No. My life I've had a full life. I mean, I really have. I'm so grateful for the life I've had. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to die, and I'd fight it to the very end, but I'm not afraid of it. And I've been blessed with such a great life and such good friends and such a great family and great health. And, I want to be here as long as I can, but if it's time for me to go, my heart's full. I want to let everybody know how grateful I have been for the life I've had.
That's beautiful, man. Well, let's say heaven exists and for some reason they actually let you in. What would you like to hear God say the moment that the two of you meet face to face?
I think it'd be cool to get a bro hug, like we come in together, we do it just like a natural, right?
For sure.
Just like I see him and he sees me and we just slap and we just do like a bro hug. And it's just like, hey, he doesn't need to say anything. It's like he throws me a bro hug, and I did a decent job down here.
What if he throws you a bro hug and while he still has his arm around you, he says, "I have the coolest jet ski for you"?
I'd say, man, I am glad that I didn't steal that freaking car when I wanted to when I was a high schooler.
Chris, what superpower would you choose if you could have anyone?
Okay, somebody's going to steal this from your podcast, okay? Because I have the bitchinest answer for this ever. My superpower is that I can communicate with anything in the world, any animal, any human, no matter what their language is. I can communicate with anything.
I would love to have that superpower. I really would.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Every language,
and every species. Yeah.
Every bird, every tiger, and everybody, you can communicate with anything, any living thing you can communicate with.
Be amazing.
And that's a TV series. That is a TV series, or that is a superhero right there.
I agree.
So I'm trademarking that right now. So anybody who listens to your podcast and steals, I'm going to stunt.
I'm afraid I know some other people who want the same power, but it's still a great power.
I had it first.
What's next for you in life?
I go to Mississippi to work on a movie. I'll be gone for about a month on that. It's a Bruce Willis action movie. And then from there, I'm doing a TV show in Atlanta that I'm acting on. So yeah, things are good. It's the year's starting to pick up.
That's great.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm curious, are you a spiritual guy?
Very. I went to church and everything when I was a young kid. My grandparents were religious, took me to church. But I was introduced to spirituality in my teens. And my parents were very spiritual, and they were kind of introduced to it at the same time I was. And we learned about meditation and metaphysics. I was young, and it took me a little bit longer to kind of take in the concept of spirituality. But man, it's one of the biggest things in my life that has helped me in everything, in every facet of my life, is the spirituality that I learned as a teen.
Is there a particular dogma or whatever that you follow, like Zen Buddhism or whatever?
Yeah, I think like acting. People always ask, what kind of technique do you have in acting? And there's a couple. There's Meisner and there's this and that.
Stanislavski.
Yeah. I took a little bit from each one. I took a little bit from here. I took a little bit from there. And that's the same thing I did in spirituality.
That's cool.
Yeah. I could highly recommend transcendental meditation, which I learned how to do about 7 years ago. But when I was a teenager, I learned from a very spiritual therapist that helped me with my jet ski racing, because I was kind of beating myself up every time I didn't win a race. You create your own reality. I remember trying to grasp that as a kid. It's like, well, what do you mean? I got in a car accident. Are you telling me that I wanted to be in a car accident? And no, you didn't want to be in it, but you created it. It's like, what? Why would I create? But you learn that. And it took me a while to understand it. But once you understand that you create your own reality, everything's different. There's really no reason to feel sorry for yourself. There's no reason to blame someone for something. There's no reason to be too surprised or shocked at the outcome of something. You create your own reality. You take responsibility for everything. When I learned that, my whole life changed. And the meditation, which I do every day, twice a day, in a perfect world, sometimes I miss, but I meditate every day. I'm very strict about it. And it is a very important part of my life.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have the health I had. I don't think I'd have the career I have. I don't think I'd have the wonderful family I had without all that.
Well, Chris, the last thing we do on the show is a little game I have called 299 Philosophical and Life Questions with Moonbird. I have this list here of 299 philosophical and life questions, and you get to pick two numbers from 1 to 299, and I'll ask you those two fun questions. What are your two numbers?
13
and
141.
13 and 141. Okay, number 13. How do you define success?
Oh, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good question for old number 13, huh? People define success differently. I think it's happiness. It's hard. It's hard if you're happy all the time. It's hard to not think, you're successful, because the richest people in the world, they're the richest. Some rich people in the world, they commit suicide, or, they don't have a family or whatever. But happiness is, if you can smile every day, I think overall happiness and well-being is the answer to success, and love, and having love in your life.
Amen. 141. And by the way, this is the first time this question's been asked on the show, so thank you very much. What has been the biggest change you've ever made that made you the most proud of yourself?
Wow. I think I'm going to just look back on it and say, when I gave up drinking and said I was going to give up drinking, I was never going to take another sip. And I never have.
Good for you.
So that's been, let me just do the math here, 35 years ago.
Wow.
Something like that. And, it became a promise to myself, and the fact that I could keep that promise to myself. And now it's easier. But when I was younger, people always kind of trying to, peer pressure you into drinking.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really proud of the fact that I did that. And it kind of shows that I can, another thing, I'm going to go off on a tangent here. Remember I told you French fries were my favorite food?
Yeah.
So I was talking to Jackson, who's my middle child, and we were eating, and he's like, "Man, you love fries." I go, "Yeah." And he goes, you couldn't live without fries, huh?" I go, "Yeah, I could." And you order them all the time. I don't have to eat them. So I said, and it was January 1st when we're at a sports bar. This is a couple of years ago. And I go, "I tell you what, I won't eat French fries for a year." And I went a year without eating French fries or potato chips. And then I started, a year went up and I started eating them again. But it's like, I don't know. I showed myself I could do whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah. When you put your mind to it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the drinking thing. That's what gave me the confidence to know that I can do that.
That's great. Well, Chris, I can't thank you enough for being here. It's always so fun to hang out with you. And of course, I wish you continued success. And I really look forward to when you invite us to your Academy Award party for winning the award and saying thank you to the stunt community. I think that's fantastic. Can't wait.
And don't you steal my gift bag, Daniel. I'll be watching you like a hawk. Okay?
No promises. You take care, brother.
All right. Thank you. It's been fun.
Friends and listeners, if you'd like to learn more about Chris Gann or becoming a stuntman, stuntwoman, or an actor, there are resources and links in the show notes for your perusal. And while you're online, why don't you head on over to Memories of a Moonbird? No, that's not it. To patreon.com/Moonbird and throw a few bucks towards the show. We really appreciate your support. And while I'll now get this correct, if you want more Moonbird in your life, and hey, who wouldn't? Then head on over to memoriesofamoonbird.com or visit me on social media. You know the place, at Memories of a Moonbird. And remember, Chris Gann is a professional stuntman. Don't try jumping through glass windows at home. Stay safe.